Alrighty, sitting in the machine here. Like I was saying, about 100,000 miles. I want to talk about a ventilation system here that I was trying to work out in regards to having some sort of an exhaust fan system running with the toilet all day, so I wouldn't come back to a van that smelled like shit. Long and short of it is these are all fully sealed, so they say. You've got like a door seal type thing with your cassette toilet. I don't always trust that, so I want a fan in this thing to stop any possible poo-poo smell, and also just to stop it. It's freaking hot at the moment. After all this rain in the morning, it's got hot and it gets very warm in a closed vehicle, so I sort of wanted a fan just to keep drawing that heat out. Now with this one, the default in a lot of vehicles is to be fresh air, and it's only when you push the actual recirculate button that it'll actually start recirculating. Failing that, you've got an airflow, I believe, coming through at all times from the front. Especially if you deliberately create a vacuum in here, it'll suck through these vents that comes from where you where your wiper shafts come out, you know, from the engine underneath that plastic cover. You'll know what I mean. It's the yeah, go and look at your own car, you'll see. Anyway, the long and short of it is I also wanted one for the stove, because of course kettles boil water, and you know, a lot of people have a lot of moisture problems. Now here you don't really get high humidity, except the last 3 days has been fucking humid around here, which is very unusual. But it's been a combination of a lot of rain and trying to be summer at the same time, which we don't usually get. It's either frickin' wet and cold or dry and hot, and not sort of both. You know, it doesn't sort of, you really get humidity. But of course, with a, you know, cooking a bit of rice, boiling a kettle and making coffee and tea or whatever, and you know, there's going to be steam there, you know, it's just undeniable. So I have sort of looked at a number of different vehicles and wagons and vans and stuff like that, and I find that a lot of them, they have a ventilation system like this. Now basically that's your tail lights, that's your tailgate, and this is your bumper. So your bumper will be flat on the back, and then it sort of just has a little bit that curves around the side. Now I've seen vehicles where they've damaged the bumper or ripped it off, and you actually have like a little veins, like a vent with little veins, you know, like your little louver vein thing that, you know, and it's usually about 4 or 5 inches across and maybe 6 inches tall or something like that, usually 4 by 6 inches, like a little rectangle. And that's basically where your air leaves the vehicle. And quite often they've got it tucked behind that, what's his name? That bumper, especially with the older ones where you had a bit of a gap between the bumper and the body, but things like this, they don't have that gap. You know, I'm talking about machines from the 80s. These machines here, the early 2000s, you know, pretty much anything that's got a freaking airbag in it, once you got to that sort of, well, I know you've had airbags in the US for years, but, you know, we started getting airbags in the mid-90s here. And Mercedes were available with airbags way earlier, but that's because they were in Germany that way. So anyway, once you get to this early 2000s, you know, you like this thing, 2002, 2003, all that sort of stuff, you tend to notice the bumper isn't really separate. That 97 Ford I've got, that's sort of where they started to really close up and touch the body more or less, but if you get something out of the 80s, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So I sort of thought, well, where's the vent on this, and what can I do? And my plans were to basically get something like this, where you basically have your vein, like that piece there where that comes out. I was going to have like an exhaust fan that runs into a PVC pipe. Probably, you know, we can get 40 mil, 50 mil for like hand basins in bathrooms and all that. So I was going to get some of that to go down, 90-degree bend, turn around, and have a T-piece here with an end cap that you can screw off, because you can get these ones where you've got an end cap with a rubber seal, and then you've just got like a little piece there which is just like a straight piece that's threaded on the end. So you get your end cap with your rubber O-ring in it, and you screw it on, and then have the pipe go straight out to there. And you say, well, why would I want that? Well, condensation and fat. So evaporated oils, because oil will actually evaporate, and any sort of other shit that's running down through the you know, your exhaust fan system for your stove will pull up in there. And of course, if you have steam and that steam cools in the pipe, it condenses, and then you have water dripping in, and that'll be a little pocket there that the water can fall into. If you've ever seen those rainwater first flush systems, you can go and buy some god-awful expensive heap of shit, or you can make up a similar thing so that when it rains for the first time and you got leaves in your gutter, or especially when you got like these bloody cypress pines, and it's not like a leaf, but it's just this little crumbly bit of shit, all of that can build up in there and won't go into your actual rainwater tank, and you can take that off and you just lose a tiny, you know, few cups full of water, and out it goes. Most people, well, tanks are made these days with mesh on the top. At least the plastic ones. Some of the steel ones are still made without any mesh on the top for where your water goes in. But I really wanted to have this just so I would catch any fats and any waters and any oozy sort of shit in there. Almost like a grease trap, so to speak, you know. And the idea being that any steam would, if it condensed in here, it wouldn't just sort of trickle down inside the vehicle and get stuck in the bloody rear fender or something like that. So that if you got it in here, you'd end up with a bit of fat or oil in the bottom and your water would be at the top, but in due course, over the heat of heating up, parked in the sun or whatever, or more hot gas fumes or whatever coming down, propane fumes coming down through here, it would actually draw out some of this water through either evaporation or transpiration, which is, well, almost like your evaporative cooling effect, where if you, and I've done this too at work, most people don't know this, you can have really low temperatures. We've had temperatures that, you know, it's like 42 Fahrenheit, and the wind's blowing like a mofo, and we've got stuff wet, and it dries in 15 minutes, even though it's only 42 degrees Fahrenheit, because the wind will draw the water off regardless of it being so bloody cold. And, you know, that's a thing that happens, and it's called transpiration. And I got another one that I was using when we got stuff wet a while back. It was, you know, it wasn't very warm at all. This was sort of going back in the early part of spring, and we had sort of stuff that was wet from being out in the rain, and I would put it inside, and we got this, like one of those big industrial 250 watt fans that they have at, well, your workshops and stuff like that. We've got a couple of those at work. So I set this stuff up all in a line, and then got the fan on one end so it'd blow down the side of all this stuff. And sure as eggs, you know, half an hour running this fan, it really started to dry this stuff off. And that's what's known as transpiration. But I'm going to show you what this vehicle has, and I'm bloody pleased that it's got this. And I've seen stuff like this. There might be a bit of wind noise here. There you go. I'll just talk a bit louder so you can hear still. Just put my finger over the mic and that blocks out the wind noise. Okay, well this is the back cover here that comes off. H, right hand, little Hyundai symbol. That's your little knobby thingy you turn there. And in all of this crapola, you've got your jack, and that's your little baggie. There's your friggin' tyre wrench thing, wheel red, whatever you call it. You know what I mean. This here. Now, who can guess what this is? For the rear air conditioning. It's the ducting for the rear air conditioning. I'm trying to work out where the bloody hell it comes from, and it seems as though it's just going straight underneath this floor here. I still don't. I've been underneath the vehicle trying to track where the bloody hell it all comes from, and I can't see it actually coming from the front. I really can't. So I've got to get underneath and work out if it actually draws air from the back, which I doubt it, being behind the back wheels, but and so close to the exhaust, I don't think you'd want it near the back. But interesting enough, this thing here, that's an aluminium casting with a smaller pipe and a bigger pipe. And if I can hardly believe it, but there may actually be an evaporator in here somewhere, which is where your cooling takes place, because this shit here, those lines there, may be running refrigerant gas. Yeah, I'm not joking. And if they've done it that way, I'm very surprised that Hyundai would do it that way, because Hyundai likes to cheap out on things, and that's a shock if they've actually got refrigerant gas and an evaporator somewhere between this ducting and the vent. That would be stunning. And, oh, actually, this one that goes under the floor here, I know where that's going, just to the other side, so that won't be any big deal there. But there's something very intriguing. Yeah, that's right. We have an actual bunghole. Now that just made life a whole lot easier, because all I got to do is get, I'd say about 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe, and go straight down through that. And all I got to do is just put a little bead of silicone around that. So the intriguing thing is I haven't drilled any holes in the vehicle. That there, although you can't really see it very well, is actually painted the same colour as the body, pretty much. Well, it's a grey anyway. It's at least primed, if not painted the body paint colour. No, it is only primed. Yeah, it's grey. It's painted with grey primer, which, it's a Hyundai. They're not going to fucking... When you get cars in the US, you may notice that you only have a brand primer under the hood. Here in Australia, we have the proper colour of the rest of the vehicle in the engine bay, under the hood. And but this is a Hyundai, so that's just primer. So they got a grey primer, and that hole is all properly, well, it doesn't even look drilled. I think it's actually punched out. Yeah, it's actually like, you know, properly painted. And it's not going to start rusting because I didn't drill a hole with my drill through there or a hole saw, and it's done properly and won't start turning to shit. So that's great, because all I've got to do is, for now, I might give this a little clean off. There's just a little bit of grease on the back there and a little bit of dust on this side, but I might give that a clean off and put it back in, and that's it. All I basically got to do is get this little louvered circus and put some sort of a pipe thingy, either drill it, with a lot of shadow troubles, drill a hole here, or I'll sort of snip this out with something, and you can sort of get rings, like flange ring things that you can stick over. So I might do something like that, silicone it, cut it out, put a flange ring and silicone it on, and yeah. But dare I say it, I think this is also where the air in the cabin leaves the vehicle, and somewhere in this is probably a ventilation thing. I don't know exactly where, but yeah, intriguing. That is definitely one problem solved. And in that case, I wouldn't even need your grease trap option, because you just go straight down and it drops out between the bumper and the back wheel. So if you got any grease or any water or whatever, drip, 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 who gives a shit? Straight on the friggin' road, who cares?